Hi everyone, I'm Romain, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hall, and today I'm going to talk to you about using product data to help close more deals. So a little bit of background about me. I have more than 20 years of experience building businesses. I'm responsible for building the key partnerships and establishing the vision and the strategic direction for Hall. And I help a few companies through the Techstars network, which incidentally is really amazing. If you're thinking about going through an accelerator, try to get into Techstars. I really recommend it. We've been there and we loved it. Um, so everyone knows that sales and marketing today is more and more data driven, and that there's more and more data, more and more tools, more and more tactics to help close deals. The landscape is more and more competitive. There's a lot of players today on each segment of every market, so you have to be better than others. And one of the best ways to get a lead, get an advantage over other companies is to create a better relationship with customers. Because trust, social proof, recommendations, they do trump everything else. So those are really the moat you're looking to build. And so you can close more if you have more relevant conversations with your customers, if you talk about the things that actually matter to them and you really establish a bi-directional conversation. The thing is, this is really hard to do at scale. So one thing that we observed with our customers, our own customers, is that they were, the successful ones uh, were really putting in place something that they had in common, which is a tactic that helped them close more consistently, more predictably the leads than others. And so basically, they had a shorter life cycle, they had higher close rates, they could more reliably define who's going to be a customer and who would not. And I'm not giving anything away with when I'm saying that it does involve looking at how to use your product. And that really applies mostly to companies with a freemium product or companies with some sort of a trial, self-service, where you can actually give something to people who are coming in so that they can try, play around, get some value, and you, on the other hand, you can identify when you can and should be reaching out to them and what you should be telling them when you do reach out. So, in a gist, in a nutshell, really what they did is take that product data, which is usually, you know, pretty often it is available, but it's available in an analytics tool, or it is gated behind a SQL database that the data science team needs to exploit to understand the behavior. And so what they did is they took that data and made it available to everyone in the team, and not just the data team, not just the product team. So in a nutshell, I'm going to talk to you about an example from one specific customer. They had, they have a freemium product, and they have hundreds of leads, hundreds of free trial signups and freemium signups every month. Their main problem is that they just can't contact everyone all the time. So they had the gut feeling that if they were able to have the right next action with specific leads, specific trialers at the right time, they could make an influence, they can make an impact on the close rate and control the life cycle. So one thing that they really, wanted to do is when someone invites a teammate, for them it's a very positive signal, and they want to make sure that the newly invited person has the right onboarding. So what they wanted is to offer a training session to a teammate that was just invited, so that they can make a champion out of it. Or when their trailer published an experiment for the first time, they realized that most often, they could have ways to improve the experience. So they wanted to offer a meeting with their CS team so that they could review what was just published and help improve it. Obviously, you can't do that in the dark. You need really accurate data and really timely data to do that. So let's look at how they manage that. The first thing that they built was basically they were using HubSpot. They wanted to know when something happened in the product and make sure that it made its way to HubSpot so that it could enrich the profile that that company was using, and that at the same time they could use the workflows from HubSpot to notify their sales rep and ping them with that message to have the right conversation at that precise time. So that's what they set up initially. There's a reason why Hall is involved here. We can get into details later. There's more than one way to put that together, but incidentally, this is how they did it, and I'll explain why they went that way. And then they started with this, but really soon they realized that they actually had more leads that they could contact on a daily basis. So they went to V2. V2 was basically the same system, but that time, before sending it to HubSpot, they started enriching those profiles. So they used a product called Clearbit, who gives a ton of firmographic data based on a single email, so that they could identify if the company is a big company or a small company, if they are in SaaS or if they are in e-commerce. So they used that to create a fit score. And they were also looking at the product activity. What was the sequence of events that was performed? And using all of those signals, they computed a score that allowed them to prioritize leads and build a ranking inside of HubSpot so that they could focus their energy on the companies which had both the right size, the right industry, and which were having the right activity at that precise time. That allowed them to have 30% less calls and 30% more closing because they were just calling the right people at the right time and they knew why. But they didn't stop here. The next thing that they did, the V3, is that they actually wanted to react in real time. So they didn't want that list updated once a day. They wanted it updated continuously so that they could compute an activity score, which was ranked A, B, C, and D. And for instance, when a customer, a lead, went from C to A, they wanted both to enrich HubSpot, put the right data, but also send a real-time notification through Slack to the right sales to tell them that that hot lead just published a flow. That allowed the sales rep to be really proactive and contact in the next 5 minutes the lead as they were still using the product to offer the next best action. And that is really something that had immense result because they were able to react just in time, just as if they were sitting right next to each and every lead. And basically what it takes is you want to have your product data in HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever CRM, Copper or Close, whatever CRM you're using. And then you want to use HubSpot workflow or some automation system to react on the changes in the data as fast as they happen. And the last step is what you want to do with that is you want to notify the reps so that they know who they should contact and why. So in a nutshell, it's really simple. You want curated data. So you don't want every single bit of product data because that would be really overwhelming for the sales team. They would just start ignoring this as like ambient noise. You want to identify the right elements that really warrant a next action. You want those pings, those solicitations to the sales team to be really actionable. It should not be a raw feed of important things. It should be aggregated. So it's not because I just visited the dashboard that there should be an action or that I published a flow. You want the first flow because it's different from the others. And lastly, you want it real time because the best moment to contact a lead is when they're actually inside of your dashboard, inside of your product, using the product, and just have a slight nudge to offer a timely bit of advice or the start of a conversation. This is really what makes a difference between an unsolicited email that says, hey, can we help you? And something that says, oh, you published your first flow, congratulations. Do you want me to go over it with you so that we can see if it can be improved? That really makes a world of difference. And this is what makes those deals close faster. So, I mean, understanding and using that product data means you have to put a few things in place. You have to really understand the customer journey, what type of events matter. And this is something you most probably already do in your product team. You want to capture those engagement signals, those valuable actions, milestone actions, and you want to capture them and make them available to your team, to the right person in your team so that they can act on it. So all of this, as a whole, makes the entire company product driven instead of just being, reactive to the analysis that is done by the product and the data team. The thing is, you can ask why is not everyone not doing that? The thing is that data is really hard to access. It usually lives in an internal database or in an analytics tool like Amplitude or Mixpanel, or it lives in a data warehouse. It is not present in the CRM, in the marketing automation tool. The second thing that makes it hard is that what I showed you is the result. But to get to that understanding of the situation, you really want to iterate. You want multiple versions of your automation strategy so that you can understand what makes the user stick and what is the right message. So you really need to go fast. You don't want lengthy cycles between each test. You really want something that is agile and can be done in a matter of hours before you find what really works. And the last thing is, if you build it in-house, most likely it's going to be owned by your engineering, who's going to instrument your internal product to send the right data to your tools. That is really costly to build, maintain over time because APIs change, the strategy itself changes, and you want the engineering team not to be just here for the initial build, but for the maintenance and the evolution of those strategies. So, I mean, you really want to look at something and lift up the bottlenecks. The main bottlenecks to doing that are rigid, brittle, and limited access to data, and the fact that engineers are usually the ones to do that. And so those are the main things that you want to lift if you want to be agile in your product-driven growth strategy. So, I mean, one thing that we saw with the customer I was mentioning before is that they would actually initially max out the HubSpot API at 10 minutes past midnight. So it was reset every night at midnight. And 10 minutes after, they consumed their entire daily quota. That made it just impossible to send fresh and accurate data to HubSpot in real time. They could, at best, batch it once every day. So that just killed that strategy entirely. The second thing is that you saw it, they went through 3 different iterations, and actually those were 3 releases. They had dozens of versions of intermediate versions. And when you're being engineering driven, you build something that is really reliable, really scalable. But the downside of that is that you really need to plan in advance and have some clear specs. And whenever there's a change or something that is not, that is not as planned, there's going to be more time. So in the end, you end up counting in weeks or even months the time to deploy something that flows reliably, because one really important thing is that you don't want 90% reliability, you want 100%. You don't want 10% of the leads to be missed because you have an edge case. You really want 100% accuracy. So that makes building this in-house pretty time consuming. When the go-to-market team can own that, you iterate in the matter of hours. And when you actually want to make it stable then and scale, you should already have something that works. You should not go back to the drawing board. So this is really what it takes to get your product data usable, because you can't just draw the strategy, on a sheet of paper and then have it implemented on a one-off basis. Uh, you need those iterations to be able to adapt to your ever-changing strategy. The results for the customer I was talking about were pretty impressive. They had 70% more conversion from the moment they started scaling that. They increased their ACV by 25% because they knew why customers were buying, so they could adapt their pricing and their plans to that demand and the real needs of their customers. And as a result, they improved their revenue by 60% quarter over quarter. And that was just by having the right sales conversations at the right time. So, I mean, that speaks a lot about the value of doing that. The main thing for customers is that they were really feeling understood. They were feeling like someone was really having the right conversation with them. So for the customers, it was a really good relationship too. So, I mean, we all know as product people that the product usage data, behavioral data, is really the core of what makes customer ticks. It is a translation of what customers are looking for, what they want. And up until today, it's most of the time siloed into analytics products so that it can be analyzed and then derived into something that creates value. What we're talking about here is using it live to impact the rest of the team and help them have the right conversation. So your sales, marketing teams can have a better interaction with customers. Yeah, if you have questions, we're happy to help you discuss that, answer any questions, whether they're related to Hull or not. We really love talking about data. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us questions. We love being able to have those conversations. That's all for me, and hope to talk to you online. Thank you very much.